Record. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to Prader-Willi California Foundation's Prader-Willi syndrome school training for the school professional. I'm going to share my screen and get started. Because we have a little bit of time, you guys all see this? Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Because we have a little bit of luxury of time, although I know I'll be loved if I end early. If you have questions, you can stop me at any time. If I know I'm going to address that question within the training, then I will let you know that. Otherwise, we'll stop and we'll answer that question right away. Okay, so here we are. So there are a number of physiological symptoms that impact this student who has Prader-Willi syndrome. And we're going to go over those briefly. The first would be that weak muscle tone hypotonia, which increases problems with strength and is not the only reason, but contributes to poor balance, poor coordination, poor motor planning. So you're going to want to watch this student very carefully on the playground setting, especially. Cognitive limitations, impaired judgment always. Hyperphagia is a hallmark symptom of Prader-Willi syndrome. It is that dysfunctional appetite regulating system. Stomach issues, bowel issues, and a lack of vomit reflex are all part and parcel of this syndrome. We'll take a look at those in a little bit greater detail. Temperature regulation dysfunction, where the internal temperature of this young lady may not reflect if she's seriously ill or has infection. For instance, she could have a major flu or a major infection, and her temperature may not register a fever. So you cannot go by fever to distinguish whether this young lady is seriously ill. Also, this young lady may get overly heated much more quickly than you would anticipate, or very cold, hypothermic very quickly. She will also probably not regulate that she feels too hot and therefore should take off a jacket, or feels too cold, therefore should put on a jacket, because she has a higher pain threshold, right? So she may be seriously ill or seriously injured and may not be able to tell you that she is, or even where she's feeling any pain. We've had people who break their right leg and will kind of complain about pain or something not feeling right on the left leg. So there's something that's not working properly in the brain to register pain signals. Self-injurious behaviors include most often skin picking. We'll look at that. Speech and language problems often are common in people with the syndrome, and they interfere with articulation. They increase frustration as the student isn't easily understood, and therefore impact the student at school, not only academically, but also behaviorally. Disordered sleep causes excessive daytime sleepiness, excessive irritability, even no matter if the child is going to bed at the same time every night and getting good sleep time, it may not be that she's getting adequate sleep itself, restorative sleep. Yeah. Temperament and behavioral issues are part and parcel of Prader-Willi syndrome. So that's really the thrust of this training is, what can you do at the school site level, the educational environment level, to help reduce, manage, avoid any behavioral issues. Anxiety is at the base of all of these behavioral issues, almost always. Lying and and we're going to look at how do you manage that. Lying and confabulating. Most students with Prader-Willi syndrome will lie to get out of trouble, because as we'll see, most people with the syndrome cannot tolerate being wrong. And so they may lie to defend themselves or get out of something that they think they're going to be blamed for. Confabulation is its own separate symptom. And I don't know whether this student has confabulation as a symptom. It's simply making up whole stories out of cloth. There's no basis to them. There may be even no primary or secondary gain to making up a story, but they do. The reason I bring them up here at a school training or residential training is because some people with Prader-Willi syndrome will confabulate and make up false allegations of abuse. And for mandated reporters, that can be extraordinarily concerning. So I throw it out there. So if it exists, we can talk about how to manage it later. So this dysfunctional appetite regulating system, hyperphagia, that we'll talk about throughout this training, is a physiological, neurological drive to eat or obtain food that lasts throughout the lifetime. The brain functions as if the body is starving. So this is not a behavioral thing. This is a neurochemical symptom. The brain drives the individual to eat or find as much food as possible. It stores consumed food as fat in the body, very differently than a typically developing student does. It lowers the metabolic rate to almost half what it should be in order to conserve energy. It's like the brain is in starvation mode, so it tells the body to slow down burning all calories so you conserve energy and you can survive. The vomit reflex is a central nervous system reflex, and that is not working properly in individuals who are diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome. So if the body it consumes poisonous food, rotten food, too much food, right? Whereas if for instance, if you and I drank too much alcohol, our body would whoops it up no matter what, right? That central nervous system reflex does not work properly in somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome. So this student, if she eats way too much food, or if she takes food out of the trash can that's poisonous or rotten and would be ill from it, is not going to whoops it up to get it out of her body. So any type of emetic that induces vomiting should not be given to this student because repeated doses will be toxic. If vomiting is occurring in this student, this could signal a life-threatening situation, and you're going to need to ready the individual to go to the hospital, and you're going to notify parents immediately so you get their input on how to manage. So unmanaged hyperphagia plus a slow metabolic rate cause rapid weight gain. The potential for premature death from a stomach rupture or a bowel rupture or necrosis, dead tissue skin cells, choking, very common cause of death, unfortunately, in people with Prader-Willi syndrome. And then obviously the potential for morbid obesity if unmanaged, and behavior problems are related to access to food. Death can occur from a single overeating episode, and that is especially true for individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome who've always been thin. They're actually, unfortunately, at greater risk for a stomach or bowel rupture and necrotic issue. Prader-Willi syndrome is not an eating disorder. Prader-Willi syndrome is a medical disorder. An eating disorder is amenable to psychological intervention, psychiatric intervention, psychotropic medications, behavior management, behavior modification. Prader-Willi syndrome's hyperphagic food drive is not amenable to any of these. It is a physiological, genetically based medical disorder. There are no known medications to treat or even reduce the hyperphagia food drive. There's no teaching the individual to manage themselves and not take food. Somebody may look like they're not taking food in the moment if they're being supervised, and that may make you think, well, they're fine. She's not taking any food. Don't be fooled. If she doesn't have supervision, and she knows she doesn't have supervision, her brain may very well overrule her impulse to and being taught not to take food that's not hers, and she's going to take it. So current management of hyperphagia in Prader-Willi syndrome throughout the world. The state-of-the-art management strategy or intervention is 24/7, every single day of the year of this individual's life, supervision and adherence to what's called the principles of food security. And this will occur throughout her lifetime. There's research going on to try to find a medication, but it's not here yet, and we're not even as close as we would like to be yet. Nobody known to be diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome can live successfully independently. Those who have tried have either become morbidly obese and had to return to some kind of a supported living setting, or they've died. So for the duration of this student's lifetime, she's going to live within her family home or a Prader-Willi syndrome designated residential setting, whatever that looks like. So the goal of educating this student, I know you're only at kindergarten right now, but the goal of educating this student is never going to be to teach independent life skills. This becomes much more important, obviously, at the transitional years. The goal for this student is not going to be teaching her any of these upper grade level skills. I know you're not doing any of these now. And my guess is you don't have cooking class in kindergarten, but often we use food and art supplies and or art crafts, macaroni and Skittles and blah, blah, blah. So that may be something that we look at. How do we modify some of these activities in your classroom so you're teaching the same concepts, but you're not putting this student at risk for not only behavior problems, but health and safety risks. The Prader-Willi syndrome hyperphagia food drives underlie many maladaptive behaviors, but not all. There are a number of other factors that can cause unwanted maladaptive behaviors as well. And almost all of those have a base of anxiety. So almost everybody with Prader-Willi syndrome has high levels of anxiety, which is excessive worry, fear, unrealistic view of problems, feeling out of control. These lurk just below the surface, even if your student looks pretty calm, and she may be in that moment, but they're just below the surface, waiting to be ignited by any real or even perceived stressor. So anxiety can cause maladaptive behaviors. So if you're seeing arguing and defiance, that could reflect anxiety. Verbal and physical aggression could reflect anxiety. Certainly running away, elopement, reflects anxiety. Repeated questions, excessive talking, and skin picking could all reflect anxiety. These aren't the only reasons why a student would be engaging in these behaviors, but if you see them, that's what your first thought is always going to be. Is there some kind of anxiety the student is feeling? And if so, how do I reduce it to figure out what's going on? The more you're aware of Prader-Willi syndrome, what might be going on underneath the behavior, how your student is thinking is influenced by this syndrome, the greater success you're going to have to intervene and avoid unwanted behaviors. And really, that's what we want, right? We want the school year to flow easily and well. Anything or anyone that raises anxiety has the potential to cause a behavior problem. That means that you have the potential to cause a behavior problem where one would never have existed had you not done a goof, right? But that also means that you and I and everybody in her environment has the potential to reduce or even eliminate a behavior problem from occurring just by how we manage our interactions with her and in her environment. So our focus then is going to be, how do we do that? How do we manage our interactions? How do we manage her environment? So we're now going to be looking at the top 10 Prader-Willi syndrome behavior management strategies that are in our toolkit. The very first is the PWS environmental basics. These are critical to this student's success. We're going to take a quick look at each of them now. Food security is a concept that was developed by some specialists who said that no doubt when the next meal or snack is coming, plus no hope or chance to get extra food, mean this student is not going to be disappointed. And when there's no disappointment, there's no behavior problems. That's our goal. No doubt means that this student knows exactly when I don't mean exactly. In the flow of the day, she knows when her meal or snack is going to be eaten, and it is the same every day. It can be, it's written down on her on her class schedule, in her notebook, or on her desk, whatever you think would be helpful. It's she's informed of a change in the food schedule or the food plan if there's going to be a change in the day's schedule according to her level of anxiety, right? Scheduled food should be as reliable for this student as breathing air. Never use food as a reward, never use food as a bribe, and never withhold food for poor behavior. Well, as an example of a reward, right? Wow, you did 10 extra math questions. I think you can get one more Skittle, or we'll go to lunch a little bit earlier because you finished all that. That's your extra special reward. Don't use food as a reward. Never use food as a bribe. Come on, just do 10 more problems and I'll give you an extra Skittle. Never, ever. That will backfire in your face. And never withhold food for poor behavior. You know what? You didn't do those 10 problems that you were supposed to. So you're going to be missing your snack period and staying in and doing those math problems. Never. That will backfire hugely. So don't do it. There's lots of things that you will do instead. We'll get there. No doubt when a snack or lunch are coming, plus no hope or chance to get extra food. This is the hardest to institute in the class, in a school setting, right? No doubt is pretty easy. It's routinized all through the day, but no hope or chance to get extra food is the hardest thing to do on a campus. Access to food creates hope that she can get that food. Hope creates anxiety. How am I going to get that food? And anxiety creates the potential for unwanted behaviors. If food is available, or she believes food is available, the individual can do little else but anxiously think of ways how she's going to get that food. So we eliminate access to food to reduce anxiety and reduce behavior problems. How do we do that? We put away student snacks or backpacks. We don't let them keep them under their desks. We keep them in their backpacks, or we keep the backpacks out of the room. Depending upon this student's level of hyperphagia, we'll tweak how you may manage that. We remove any food items, candy dishes that teachers keep on their desks, any visible food items, Cheetos, Skittles, M&Ms, anything that we often see in classroom settings. We remove those from visibility. And I don't mean putting it on the top shelf so that the student can't reach it. What we're talking about is putting them in a cabinet with the doors closed and hopefully locked even. Angelica, go for it. You have a question.
Sorry, I was getting situated again with my Zoom. Yeah, I'm a garden instructor here at school, so a lot of the food we grow is very visible, and the student will be able to visit the garden. And so what kind of recommendations would you suggest when the student arrives to our garden class where we, food growing, we have garden beds and all such of things?
Okay, great question. Perfect. We see a lot of elementary schools, especially now, having gardens and growing vegetables in there. So what we'd want to do is kind of work with parent to assess what is the degree of hyperphagia for this student. Does mom think this student, or dad think this student is going to be able to tolerate that? And if so, then great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But if we see this student is, so we may keep your schedule of visiting the garden and planting and harvesting your vegetables and eating them in class or however you do it as not a problem at this young age. If you do see behavior problems, if you do see, and we have some strategies to kind of help you with some of that. So you're going to have eyeballs on, so that we see if she's taking other students' food. We see if she's stuffing her mouth too fast, and we assess for that. And if those things are happening, then we think of another plan. And that would be done, at a team level to see what's the best for this student.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Lisa, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're going to talk about like language to help redirect the student from.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
absolutely. Language is absolutely critically important, much more so no matter what the intellectual functioning of a student with Prader-Willi syndrome. Language and how we say things and how we phrase things can either induce a behavior problem or avoid a behavior problem. So Alex, absolutely, we will be getting into that.
Lisa, I have a
Teachers,
question.
have coffee or water bottle be a problem for the student?
Lisa?
Water is not going to be a problem.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt. So these questions that they're asking, I'm trying to write them down so I could help them, because at the end of the day, we're first of all so grateful for you to be here. And by the way, everybody, this is the first time I'm meeting Lisa face to face. She has been my angel for the past almost 6 years on the phone. And I still haven't had the guts to meet her in person. So this is the first time seeing her face to face. With that said, some of these questions that they're asking, can I answer, or should we just keep going?
Let's keep going, right? And then afterwards, let's put a plan together, because then you'll all have the same information, and then you can, at your own pace, and if you want me to participate in that, that's fine. But for the training purposes, let's keep going. Yeah.
So do you want to maybe suggest that people put their questions in the chat, and that way you can keep going and answer them as they're relevant?
Great. Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah. Coffee or water bottles, a problem if the teacher has it on her desk. Water bottles for sure not, but coffee maybe, just because anything is considered a food. Beverages are considered a food to somebody with the syndrome. So if you're seeing behaviors in relation to that, if you're seeing raised anxiety, now you're going to know kind of what that would look like in this student, then you're going to want to readdress it. You're going to want to get rid of it. Establish the rule in your classroom for what type and quantity of food before you have any class parties, outings, especially, right? So at holidays, Valentine's Day, and then this is where you work very closely with parents. Do you want this student to participate in candy sharing activities? A lot of times when my son was in school, they put, kisses, they glue a kit, Hershey's Kiss on things. Is that, so for some students with the syndrome, they can manage and tolerate that, no problem. Maybe we don't eat all the candy while we're there at school, we take it home, and then parents can manage that. If the student can tolerate that, then that may be the plan that we do. So we're going to have to be very vigilant about how we do class parties. Do we allow the student to eat the pizza, or does mom want to send a snack, a different kind of a snack in? So, and can the student tolerate everybody else gets pizza and I get this snack? Or does mom say, I'd rather the student not know about the party and go to the library for a special outing herself? There's lots of different ways that can be managed. We just have to have it on our radar to know we may have to manage it in some way. What we want you to do, though, is put a lock on the thought that unauthorized food is available, and never give into a tantrum. Never give into a tantrum, especially for food. If you see that this student has obtained extra food or unauthorized food, you are not going to ask the question, did you eat those chips? Because that sets her up for failure, and it sets her up to have increased anxiety. She knows she's not supposed to have those chips. So she's going to either be feeling anxious about, do I lie to you? Do I think I can get away with it if I lie to you? Do I say, yes, I ate them, and then you're going to be mad at me? Boatloads of anxiety. So instead, we presume she ate those chips and we say it as a fact. Oh, I see those chips are gone. You're not going to do it in any accusatory way, because this is this student's disability. This is at the heart of this student's disability. So we need to take responsibility. If this student gains access to food, this is what her brain drives her to do. We are responsible for restricting her access to food. So you're going to say, I'll make sure that doesn't happen again, honey, so that you stay safe. And then you secure that food source. And then without her knowing, you're going to let her mom know that she got extra food or whatever the food was. You're going to have to let mom know how much you think she got. And because mom is going to have to reduce calories either for the rest of that day or for the rest of the week. Remember before I told you that the metabolic rate is about half what it should be? Students with Prader-Willi syndrome will gain weight on more than 2 healthy fruits a day. So we're talking a boatload of calories in a bag of chips or extra cookies or, right? So do let mom know that she ate extra food and how much and what kind you think it was, so that mom can compensate for those extra calories, because weight goes on really fast and the brain doesn't let it go off, lose weight quickly at all. This is where it's really important for parents to not overreact to being told their student got access to extra food. We always want the providers of care, wherever, whether we're in the school environment, community environment, residential environment later, to be able to come to us and say, this is what happened. This is so that we encourage when goofs happen in the future that we know about it. The plan is, the focus has got to be on how do we make that not happen again? How do we secure those food sources so that doesn't happen again? That's important not only for the relationship with school and parents, but also so it reduces that student's anxiety, so she knows that food source is not going to be available anymore. It's locked down. Higher cognitive abilities and verbal skills don't mean the student can override her insatiable drive to get food. It doesn't. Likewise, people with very limited cognitive functioning can think of brilliant ways to get food, very complex strategies to get food even. But that ability to think of complex strategies and maneuvers to get food doesn't generalize into other areas of life. It's like a savant skill. Even the most honest person with Prader-Willi syndrome may lie, cheat, or steal when it comes to food. That's simply a symptom of the syndrome. Behavior problems are often related to unsecured food sources somewhere, and that once all food sources are locked, anxiety is reduced and behavior problems are reduced in all areas. So this is critical to that other, your point about we have a school garden. So if her behavior is lovely on the school garden, but you see either in the hours before going to the school garden or the hours following the school garden, where there's no stressors in those environments, but we still have some behaviors going on, that may be because the stress is connected to the school garden. And we want to address that and see what else we can do.
Lisa, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So limiting her exposure to other food, how do you think like lunch and snacks should go, since she'll be surrounded by other children with other food items? What would you say?
And in addition to that, we have, free breakfast and lunch. So like any student, like I know the answer to her would be, no, you can't have it, but any student is able to have that free breakfast and lunch.
So this is where one thing, you're not going to say, no, you may not have it. What? she's not going to have it. She can't have it. But this is where, to Alex's point earlier, we're going to phrase things in a very different way. If there's free food available that she could walk by at any time, and even if there's not, we are going to have to put into our mix of supports for this student that she has to have a designated supervisory support with her at all times. This is the syndrome, and she is going to try to take food at some point. Maybe she doesn't take it in kindergarten. Maybe this symptom doesn't show until later. Maybe she's already taking food, right? So we don't know yet. Mom is going to share that with us. Actually, Mom, if you could jump in, that will help us right now. Does she take food now? Does she try to get food if you're not watching her?
I was just telling a story yesterday with our personal team that we had it for the first time. I saw that I walked away from a table with some of her younger siblings of the older sisters, and we had a tournament, and I saw as I walked away to go get her water, and she gave me the eye contact that her hand was across the table of the friend's French fries.
Okay. So
yeah, we're just starting that. Never done it before. This is the first time.
Okay. That symptom doesn't go away. This is the start of the hyperphagia drive. And in Prader-Willi syndrome, this symptom will increase throughout the years ahead. And now we manage it, we boundary it, we contain it. But we know the hyperphagia food drive is there. So we absolutely are going to have, and this is a student who is taking food off of somebody else's plate or trying to. So we're going to have eyeballs on this student at all times, especially when there's access to food. So when I say at all times, I mean when this student needs to go to the bathroom, we're going to have a supervisory support going to the bathroom with her. And if it's a female support, that's even better, because then you can be in the bathroom setting in the other side of the room, making sure she's not taking food out of the trash can. Many students who don't have Prader-Willi syndrome will just throw away half-eaten food in the bathroom trash. And this is a significant source of food for people with Prader-Willi syndrome, as we've seen, year after year after year doing trainings. Elaine asks, will the student ever eat or try to eat non-edible issues? So what that's called is pica. If she thinks a non-edible food is a food source, then that is a possible yes, absolutely, she's going to try to eat it. She thinks it's a food source. We've had people with Prader-Willi syndrome eat the filling out of ice packs, which is actually toxic. We've had, and we've had people eat pet foods. If there's class pet, they're trying to eat the food of that class pet. So that's really important that you know that. So that you always supervise this student around real food sources and even potential food sources. Pretend play kitchen is probably just fine unless you're seeing problems. What we know from research is that when this individual with Prader-Willi syndrome is thinking about food, is shown food slides, is playing with food, is looking at food in magazine, it is lighting up the brain, and that is producing chemicals in the brain. So it is triggering to the person with Prader-Willi syndrome. But I've not really heard of a lot of problems with play kitchens. I mean, these are really good OT, PT skills too, right? And up, down, and putting things in, and teaching skills in, out, hot, cold, right? So I wouldn't put too much concern into playing in the pretend kitchen area.
Lisa, is there any way I could get like a copy or any of the, because if everybody writes down their questions on this chat area, I could literally answer them like the kitchen area. No, we have it here. She thankfully, she's not in that stage of, because everything Lisa's saying, so she's not in that area of, if it's physical food, yes, she will take it. I don't care if it's yours, the friends, the neighbors, she'll take it. But if it's pretend food, if it's kitchen, she loves pretend play. That would keep her away from food if there is pretend play. She will make you pasta, she'll make you this, has no, as of this second.
Okay.
Like, we went to park yesterday, me and sister were shooting around, and for literally an hour, she was making us dinner and this and that. And her dinner was late an hour, didn't even care. As soon as we got home, she said, Mommy, I'm hungry. But it was like, wow, an hour passed and you didn't even see anything. And you were talking about food. But that is right now, like Lisa said, it's changing drastically day by day. So as of now, if it's not physical food, like litter food, and also the garden, just to let you guys go, we go to Tanaka Farm, she picks vegetables and stuff, she sees, and she will not even dare put it in her mouth. She's very, very, I don't want to say OCD, put something else in there, but she's like, it has to be washed and cleaned and cut in front of her in order to eat it. So we're in Tanaka Farm, we're in a lot of other farms. My parents in Northern California has all these fruit trees. She picks them and puts them, does not even go close to eating them, fruits and everything, as of now. Like I said, so these questions, if I can, I don't know if there's a way of, I can go ahead and answer each one individually later, whatever. And anybody who has any specific question, they could just write them in here. I would gladly answer all of them.
Great. All right. Don't remove food or anything actually out of the student's hands unless it's dangerous or poisonous, because this will almost always induce a behavior outburst. Routines, these are really easy generally to institute in a school setting because the school is already routinized and consistent, right? And this helps everybody feel safe and secure. So you're going to keep up your routines because this student has a high need for routine, predictability, consistency, and sameness in her environment. We're going to reduce the anxiety by following those routines and letting her know if a routine is going to change today. So you create those routines, you write those routines down, or you chart them, or however you do that in your classroom. And you may need to spend extra time, a little bit of extra effort to chart this for her or picture graph it for her. You want to refer to that written schedule to avoid arguments. And you're going to provide advance notice as appropriate to her, so you're not stirring up too much anxiety if there's any changes in plans. Rules make it easier for people with Prader-Willi syndrome because they reduce anxiety. And so this is also pretty easy at the school level because you guys already have your rules, right? So rules aren't intended to be punitive, as we know. They're simply ways for students to understand the structure of the classroom setting, or the structure of the library setting, or the structure of recess, how it's all going to go. There's different rules for different settings. And this is important to share with the student that the rules can be changed or they're different for each setting. So, but those are the rules in each setting. So accessing the school nurse and the principal are a couple of things that I really pay attention to a little bit more with teachers, because lots of anxiety really can cause somatic complaints. I mean, very physical complaints in individuals with anybody actually, right? But if we have a high degree of anxiety, we may be more prone to headaches. We may be more prone to stomach aches. And we may get more somatic complaints by our students with Prader-Willi syndrome. Having to think about and process things and work harder to process things and understand things is exhausting for most people with Prader-Willi syndrome. So we may see a student who's getting overly exhausted and needs to access the health room, the school nurse, maybe to have a nap. Maybe we schedule naps during the day. Maybe they don't need a nap, but they need to be able to go to the school nurse or some place to relax and have quiet time to regroup. Maybe it only takes 5 minutes and then they can resume class time. Whatever it is, if it's necessary, do make rules about how we access the school nurse, how we ask for what we need. The other thing is people with Prader-Willi syndrome are generally very hierarchical in their thinking, right? That if the aide says something the student doesn't like, then we go to the teacher. If the teacher says that's something we don't like, then we go to the next level. And often, we'll work our way up to the principal because we see the principal as having the most authority. So there may be rules that you create with the student about how we make an appointment with the principal in order to go see him when we have a concern we want to express. When something's understood as a rule, it's much more likely to be followed, especially if you're making these rules with this student or with all your students. So involve the student to the extent you can in creating the rules and then post them so that they're very visible. And then be sure to establish the rule that you can change the rules if you need to. Nobody else can but you. Boundaries are extremely critical to somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome. Firm boundaries reduce anxiety and help people feel safer. And this is just so critical with this student. So create those firm boundaries to reduce anxiety. It's like without boundaries, the feeling that somebody has with the syndrome is that they could just float out into space, and that raises a lot of anxiety. But boundaries tether us, so we're not going to float out into space. And that's the experience we want you to be thinking about. How do I create that for this student with the syndrome? The goal is for you to be the authoritative person in every single one of you is going to be authoritative, right? I'm the authority here and I'm here to help you. And this is my job to help you. And I'm going to do that for you. Not authoritarian. Do it because I said so. Line up. Why are we lining up? Because I said so. Nope. These responses, an authoritarian response, causes behavior problems because it inherently removes control from the individual, and it activates oppositional thinking and behaviors which are already deeply embedded in the neurocognitive phenotype of Prader-Willi syndrome. So people have to be the fair authority so that all your students, and particularly this one, can feel supported. So in general, you just define your boundaries, uphold your boundaries gently, but very firmly and with empathy. And we'll see what that means in a bit. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't promise anything that you don't intend to follow through on. That would be no bueno. Don't threaten to follow through with anything. I'm sorry. Don't threaten to remove a privilege. Removing things that the person wants or punishment. Do not teach people with Prader-Willi syndrome to do better. They do not teach. They only shift the focus of the upset from what the upset was, which is still there, to now I'm going to be upset that you just punished me or removed a privilege. So don't do it. It's positive behavior management strategies that we're going to be focused on. That's what's most impactful with this student with Prader-Willi syndrome. Do not allow yourself to be manipulated. She's a kindergartner. You're probably not going to be being manipulated so often on this. Sit down strikes, crying to get out of something. If it's intentional, not just I'm so frustrated I can't do it. That's a whole different ballgame from being from trying to be manipulative to get out of doing something. That usually happens if it's going to happen in the later grades. But pay attention to that, because if it's happening, we're going to need to focus on an intervention for you. Calm responses from you, care providers, is always critical, because this student is going to be, even though it's very difficult for her to get into the mindset of you, she's going to be very hyper alert to, are you mad at me? Are you angry at me? Are you accusing me of something? And these will induce anxiety and then potential for a behavior problem. So always speak calmly, no matter how you feel on the inside. Breathe, use your own self-calming strategies. You're going to help calm herself. And there's lots of strategies to do that too. A lot of which we'll look at. Respond to a tantrum or unwanted behavior with indifference, kind of boredom. You know, honey, you can sit there and cry all you want, sweetheart, about you want 4 pieces of paper, and the rule is that all the students get 2 pieces of paper, right? That's a temper tantrum. That's an overwhelming feeling of disappointment that I'm using crying or to get you to give me those extra 2 pieces of paper. That's a temper tantrum. You don't give into that. And you can, you can just kind of let her know crying doesn't get you what you want, honey. And respond to that with indifference. Keep her in your peripheral vision, but ignore that behavior, and it will soon extinguish, and she'll learn that those behaviors don't get her what she wants. Monitor for safety always if she's having an unwanted behavior. And again, know that lying to avoid being blamed for something, or getting an audience to listen to her. I don't know if this is her thing, but that's very common, not only in people with Prader-Willi syndrome, but a lot of kindergartners, right? Again, don't give into a temper tantrum, because if you do, you will have taught this child that all she needs to do is yell louder, be more aggressive, wait you out longer, and eventually you'll give in. So giving in over a little thing today can lead to a much bigger problem tomorrow. So think long-term and hold to your boundaries. Now, we can problem solve collaboratively with this student, but we're not going to be doing things like, you know what, if stop yelling. Oh God, you're not stopping yelling. Okay, here, have this book that you wanted. That's giving into a temper tantrum, right? Don't give into one. Empathy is our next intervention. I'm going to stop real quickly. Real quick. No, I'm not. We're going to continue. Note your questions if you have any on the physiological environmental management issues. Now we're going to go into intervention number 2. So if environmental basics is one base of the house we're building, empathy is the next base. It is absolutely critical to individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome. Empathy is the ability to see somebody else's perspective and share the feelings of that other person. And most people with Prader-Willi syndrome do not have the ability to see things from anybody else's perspective other than their own. So we have to see things from her perspective in order to better manage our interactions with her, right? So I love this cartoon because it really, you see here we have our student with Prader-Willi syndrome who says it's a 9. And you are saying, well, honey, no, it's a 6. You're going to get into a great big old power struggle. No, it's a 9. No, it's a 6. No, it's a 9. No, it's a 6. Until you see, why does she keep saying it's a 9? Ah, I see. You think it's a 9. Now I know why. And now I can help you kind of understand why I would like you to see it as a 6. Okay? Empathy gets to the core of anxiety, disappointment, frustration. It's so successful because it gets you out of a power struggle, right? You are in a power struggle many times with your student with Prader-Willi syndrome because that's the neurology of this syndrome. But when you use empathy, it puts you and your student on the same side of the team so that you're now with her trying to figure out the solution to the problem, not fighting against her, trying to figure out the solution to the problem. At its most basic form, an empathetic response can simply be repeating the exact words that she's using. Other words that can convey your empathy or understanding might be, you think that that's the math book we're using. I get it. You think that's the math book we're going to use. I get it. You would like to bring that math book to class. What a bummer. That's not the math book. And you want it to be. What a bummer. How disappointing. Oh my God, that's so disappointing, isn't it? That's not fair is another big one, right? So get into the mindset of this student. Empathy is not agreeing, it's not disagreeing, and it's not giving in. It is simply communicating that you understand the perspective, want, need, or concern of this student. When she feels listened to and understood, she will not need to turn the volume up to get you to understand her. She's not going to yell louder or be more aggressive or escalate her behavior or cry anymore or cry in a temper tantrum. She may cry when she's disappointed, but that's a whole nother ballgame that we can manage. But crying to give her what she wants, to turn the volume up of that upset isn't going to happen, because she now knows you understand what she wants. Only then should you well, let's stay with this for a second. So look at things from her perspective and reflect her perspective. Oh, I see you want that math book. And that's not the math book we're going to be using, but I see that's what you want. What a bummer. How disappointing. Don't be afraid to reflect how awful it must feel to her. Genuine empathy rarely ever makes anything worse. So get into her mindset of how awful, how terrible this is for her. Don't be patronizing, be genuine, and you won't make it worse. She'll finally get that you understand. Then you can go into, problem solving with her, sharing your concern. I know you want to go to the library now, and our library time is in 1 hour, right? And you want to go now. What a bummer we don't get to go now. You want to go now. That's not fair. We don't get to go now, right? You will not make it worse. You will make it better for her because she understands you get it. Empathy is critical. It gets to the heart of anxiety, disappointment, and frustration. And it's the only healthy way that we know of to stop an escalating behavior in its tracks. Don't try to talk her out of her upset. Don't try to talk. I know, you want to go to the library now, and we're going to go in 1 hour, and we have to do all these other things first anyway. So, right. So you're trying to talk her out of her upset. That's not going to work. Now you're in a power struggle. So if your offer of comfort isn't immediately helpful, oh, I know, honey, you want to go to the library now, and our time isn't for an hour. So let's do this first, and then we'll go. If that isn't immediately helpful, or bringing her, and she says, if she gives you any response other than, oh, okay, then immediately go to empathy. What a disappointment. You wanted to go to the library now? Yeah. What a bummer. What a disappointment. Library is fun, isn't it? Yeah. When we go to the library and then distract her, start moving along in a different, what are you going to do when you get to the library? Empathy is your best friend, always. Don't try to use logic and reasoning with this person, even at kindergarten age, even at college age, even at adulthood age, because all they're going to hear you say is, you're wrong. You're wrong, student. I'm right, you're wrong. So give up trying to think of brilliant ways to convince them that library is in an hour. No, it's not, it's now. No, it's not, it's in an hour. You're in a power struggle, and she keeps hearing you say, you're wrong, student, right? So use empathy. Oh, and then you think the library is now and you want to go to the library. I get it. Then go to your written schedule that you've got right there on her notebook. What time is let's take a look. Okay? Don't engage in a power struggle. Again, you're not going to win a power struggle with somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome because you're constrained by logic and reasoning. And this student may not be constrained by logic and reasoning, right? A very critical example, a nice illustrative example of that is we had a young person who had obviously eaten cake, and he had chocolate frosting all over his cake. And the care provider said, "Oh my goodness, I see you ate that cake." "No, I didn't." "Well, honey, I see that you ate that cake." "No, I didn't." "Well, honey, you have chocolate frosting all over your face." They can either, this particular student said, "Johnny ran by and put it all over my face." Well, that's not logical. It's not reasonable. Of course it didn't happen. You know that. You're constrained by logic and reasoning. But this student can go on and on and on about how Johnny wiped it on his face or an alien came down and put it on his face, but he didn't eat the chocolate cake, right? So don't try to think of brilliant ways to convince the person of what your point of view is. Use empathy instead. "Oh, you don't want to get in trouble for eating chocolate cake. I get it. I get it." Distraction after empathy can be effective, but don't try to distract the student before you've given empathy. "I know you're disappointed, honey. I know this is awful that we're not going to the library first." And well, and so, "Oh my gosh, did you see that mural those students painted and posted up there? Have you seen that before?" Distraction after empathy can be helpful. Our next intervention is paint the picture. Knowing what to expect reduces anxiety and reduces the potential for unwanted behaviors. So paint the picture before you enter any new situation. Explain in detail what's going to happen. Explain what the plan is if there's unwanted behavior. This is going to be critically important. Has school started yet?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. If parents can take student to the school today and walk the school campus, and if you've got access to the schedule, walk her to the classes. In kindergarten, it's self-contained. So, show her the playground, show her where she's going to be eating, show her, and paint the picture of what's going to happen tomorrow to reduce her anxiety tomorrow. When school starts, going over as much as you can, teachers or aides that are there, painting the picture all along the way for this student will be very helpful. And if there's if you've got a library trip planned or an outing at the common area planned, paint a picture of what that's going to look like beforehand. Giving too much advance notice creates anxiety for some people. Not giving enough advance notice creates anxiety for others. So finding the right time for your student is really critical, and parents can help that. Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these chats to see if we want to address them now. These are really good. Yeah, you guys are awesome. You guys are a great team. Anticipate that what you do this time will be expected to occur next time. And if she wants it to occur, she's going to be disappointed if it doesn't. And if she doesn't want it to occur, then she's going to be she's going to be having a behavior because she thinks it's going to, and she doesn't want it to, if that makes sense. So we have to fix it first, which brings us to our next intervention: fix a past goof. Anything that's occurred in the past is expected to occur in the future. So if something happened that needs to be fixed, either it's not going to happen, don't worry, that's not going to happen again, or that happened before, and we got to make sure that doesn't happen again. Whatever the case is, you have to paint a new picture and create appropriate future expectations. We do that by fixing a past goof. So we bring up the issue that needs fixing. Hey, remember the last time we went to the library and everybody got a lollipop on the way out? Incorporate empathy. Remind her how wonderful that was, or bad, whichever it is. And then, which might sound like, that was really nice, huh? That was a really unexpected treat that you got that lollipop on the way out. Empathy. Preface the fix, reminding the individual that you're on their team, and you always want to benefit them. So that might sound like, we always want to do what's best for you because we care about you, right? And then introduce the fix. And that might sound like, so this time when we leave the library, nobody's going to get a lollipop because that's really not so healthy, not just for you, but for everybody else. Our next intervention, number 5, creating the win-win by offering preferred choices. This is awesome. And you guys probably already use this a lot, but let me now show you why it's so critically important to the person with Prader-Willi syndrome. People with Prader-Willi syndrome are oppositional by neurochemical, neurological wiring. Prader-Willi syndrome causes oppositionalism. So the brain's automatic response is typically to be oppositional and defiant and argumentative. This can be a really tough behavior. So avoid yes/no questions. Offer instead those win-win preferred choices, your preferred choices, to reduce oppositionalism and improve her cooperation. Make everything the individual's choice within your preferred win-win options. You are giving her the experience of control, but not too much actual control. So the experience of control is I'm tethered, but actual too much control is there are no boundaries, right? No boundaries creates anxiety. So how do we do this with somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome? This is the same way you do it with everybody else. You want to put your backpack under your chair or on the hook. However you do it with your whole class, that's what you're going to be doing, right? Or if everybody needs to put their backpack on a hook, right? Do you want to put your backpack on the hook using your right hand or your left hand? Everything can be made a choice. Do you want to work on this project for another 5 minutes or 7 minutes? Do you want to watch me set the timer or not? Everything can be a choice. Avoid open-ended questions because these can be really difficult to process and these can create anxiety. So a very visual example of that is if I ask you to go to the grocery store and buy me some cereal. Well, imagine that. You're walking in the grocery store and there's about 2,000 options of cereal on either aisle, right? You're probably going to be a little nervous. Well, what kind of cereal should I get for her? But if I say to you, go to the grocery store and buy me Cheerios or Wheaties, now you know exactly what kind of cereal. You're either going to get one or the other, and you're good to go. That's what we're talking about by avoiding unwanted, open-ended questions and going to preferred choices. Avoid ambiguity, like we'll see, maybe later. If you don't know, these create anxiety. So if you don't know something, let her know, I don't know. And as soon as I know, I will let you know. Avoid hurrying with your words. Instead, use music and games to motivate or hurry. And you're working at the kindergarten level, so you don't need my help figuring this out. Allow lots of time to process past the brain's natural oppositionalism. Build in extra time wherever you go. This is where your one-to-one designated support person will come in really handy, because this person may not get up right away when you say, okay, let's go to the library. This person may need extra time, moving a little more lethargically, or processing what's happening. And so the rest of the class goes, and then the aide or whatever you call her or him will stay with the student and walk with the student at the student's pace. Preferred choices can help manage obsessive tendencies. If the student has any obsessive tendencies, which many do, then you're going to want to look at the slide a little more closely. Lots of people collect things, the more the better. So those preferred choices really can help boundary this issue. Disguise those no's. And this, for those of you who don't know, is our wonderful Mrs. Doubtfire, who's wearing a disguise. I got to get a better graphic for this to disguise the nose, but that's what this is. Anything that looks, sounds, or smells like a frustrator could lead to a behavior problem with people with Prader-Willi syndrome. The word no is a natural frustrator. Are we going, can I have that breakfast? No, you cannot have that breakfast. Frustrator. Can I have that breakfast? Oh, what a bummer. Those breakfasts are not on your food plan. What a bummer. Isn't that disappointing? Yeah, I'm so sorry. I said no without ever using the word no. And that is very critical. Empathy is going to be your best friend in so many different places, especially when you're responding to something that's going to lead or potentially could lead to a frustrator or a disappointment. So if your student says, I want to go to lunch now, your response is not going to be, no, lunch is at 12 and it's 10:30. So you've got an hour and a half left. That might make perfect sense to every other rest of the students in your classroom, but it is not going to go well with your student with Prader-Willi syndrome. So with your student, you're going to be saying no without ever using the words no. You're going to be phrasing it in very different ways, such as, me too. I love the lunch hour. Did you bring a good lunch today? Or, yeah, as soon as we finish math, then it will be lunchtime and we'll go to lunch. Using empathy, gently, but being compassionately unswerving, not giving in if she's having a temper tantrum. Okay, well, we'll leave 5 minutes early, because if you leave 5 minutes earlier today, now it's going to be leaving 5 minutes earlier than that tomorrow, or escalating an outburst in order to continue to get you to do what she wants. So you want to stay within your boundaries. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, if we finish our math, right? If you finish your math problems a little bit early, then absolutely we can go to lunch early. Sure, we can do that, right? Because now you're motivating her with math to go a little bit early. So you could do that if you want, if it's not going to be an ongoing issue. Use that broken record technique. Just keep repeating your boundaries. Schedule non-preferred tasks before preferred tasks. So this is important in the schedule if you have the ability to do that. Sometimes at the lower grades, lunch is when it is, but if, the flow of the day is what it is. But if you have the capability of having, if math is a hard subject, putting it right before lunch so that lunch is the motivator. First we do math and then we go to lunch, right? Then we are motivated to get math finished so we can go to lunch. Keep the individual thinking rather than spiraling deeper into a negative behavior. So what do you think we could, if you're upset about, you want to go to the library now. So what do you think we could do about that, huh? Do you think we could go to the library at the scheduled time? Or do you think we could have, I don't know, extra library time after school, if that's okay with your mom? I don't know. So offering options that you think of with the student could be helpful to you. Intervention number 7, allow for the possibility of her rightness. Most people with Prader-Willi syndrome have a strong need to be right at all times and at all costs. disagreements can quickly turn into power struggles that have a life or death feel to them, because being wrong to the person with Prader-Willi syndrome feels deathly intolerable. So allow for the possibility of her rightness in order to avoid power struggles. She says, the library time is at 11. No, it's not, honey, it's at 12. No, it's not, it's 11. No, it's not, it's at 12. No, it's not, it's 11. The library time, she says, now we're going to model allowing the possibility of rightness. Library time's at 11. Oh, you might be right. Well, let's take a look at your schedule and see that, right? Even though you know it's at 12. Well, you might be right. Let's take a look at your schedule. You might be right. Interesting thought. You like going to the library, right? Well, I never thought that library was at 12. Right? I like how you think. You're very anxious, or you're really looking forward to going to the library. You like to read? Wow, how awesome, right? Now, if you're trying to teach 2 + 2 is 4, and she says, no, it's not, it's 5, you are absolutely not going to say, well, you might be right. That's where you're going to pull in. Isn't that interesting? You think 2 + 2 is 5, and I'm pretty sure 2 + 2 is 4. So I wonder why you think that, huh? And then stop talking. Let her brain unwrap from the need to be right, and then continue on. You will notice that strategy will work far more helpful to you in better than trying to convince you that you're right. Now, you can certainly use concrete things like, here's 2 beads, here's another 2 beads. How many beads you got? 4. Yeah, right. Concrete thinking is where our student is. So use that to your advantage as well, just in addition to the possibility of rightness. Again, do anticipate that she's going to lie to get out of being into trouble, and to just simply acknowledge that. Don't get into a power struggle over, don't blame me. I didn't blame you. Yes, you did. You're blaming me. No, I didn't. Right. I heard you, honey. You don't want me to blame you. I get it. I understand. Many people with the syndrome have the belief, even at this young age, that they should know something, even if they've never been taught it before. This is a really big problem, potentially at the school level, right? So, pardon me, lots of students will either fake it. So if you ask the students, how many people know what 2 + 2 is, she may raise her hand and try to fake it, even though she doesn't know what 2 + 2 is. I have no idea whether she does or not, right? So you want to really assess what her true skill level is. Or she may argue with you to show you, trying to show you that she knows what it is, right? Teach as if you know she knows something, even if you've not taught it before. So an example of this might sound like, you know the routine at the end of the day, right? You take a look at your schedule and you see what books or papers you need, and you put those inside your backpack, right? You already know that. Great job. So now you've taught that behavior or skill without looking like you've taught it at all. Role model that it's okay to make a mistake. Again, most people with the syndrome will never say I goofed. So if you walk around saying I goofed, this is, for the aid too, that it makes it possible, more possible, that she will say, oh, I made a mistake. That's not what we're looking for, but it can increase flexibility. Our next intervention, number 8, use their egocentricity to your advantage. Prader-Willi syndrome neurochemistry typically interferes with the ability to see things from the other person's perspective, right? So this looks like self-centeredness, egocentrism. It kind of is. People with Prader-Willi syndrome typically think about themselves first and foremost. Now, this doesn't mean they don't have sympathy, right? If you have a Band-Aid, she may be the first person who notices that and says, you have a Band-Aid, did you hurt yourself? Or she may be sympathetic to other students. She's less likely to pay attention to other students. She's more likely to be focused on the adults in her environment. Most people with developmental disabilities do that. They're far more comfortable with the adults in their environment than they are their same age peers. So this student is more likely going to be thinking about herself first and foremost. So use that to your advantage to increase her cooperation. So for example, don't say, if you don't hurry, student, the whole class is going to be late to the library, because she could probably care less if the whole class is late to the library. But if you say, if we get to the library on time, then we can come back to the classroom for our snack on time. Now you're incorporating a strategy that motivates her to get to the library on time. Don't say, your yelling is disturbing the rest of the students, because if this student is yelling, she's more likely trying to advocate for herself. Students with Prader-Willi syndrome, even past studenthood, are really good self-advocates. They just don't do it in socially appropriate ways. They know exactly what they want and why they want it, and that, and they want it now. They're really advocating for themselves. So if she's yelling, she's more likely advocating for herself. So she could care less whether her advocating is disturbing anybody else. But if you say, I hear what you want, or I can't understand what you want, when you speak softly and calm your body, then we can talk about what you want. Now she's more motivated to calm her body and to talk about what she wants in a more socially appropriate way. Do teach the other person's perspective. Again, this is really something that the aide can be very helpful with. What do you think they meant by that? What do you think those other students are doing? Teach on purpose versus accident. This is an abstract concept that goes way above many students with Prader-Willi syndrome, and it gets them into trouble where they're accusing other students of doing things to them when that might not have been the case at all. Egocentric thinking plays in here a lot. So be very aware and looking at that. And then you can use their egocentric thinking about, now that you're 6 years old, I wonder if you're mature enough to lead the class to the library. Do you think you're mature enough to be the line leader today? This may activate her need and want to be experienced as mature and grown up. And then she's more likely to grow into that and then do a really good job of being your line leader and getting the whole class to the library on time. Motivate externally is our intervention number 9. Because most people with Prader-Willi syndrome have very low intrinsic motivation, we want you to motivate her externally. This is not the student who's going to be writing and making her letters very clear because she sits back and says, wow, I did a really good job writing my letters. No, this is maybe, but probably not. This is the student who's going to respond hugely to your saying, wow, look at how neatly you're writing each of your letters. That is awesome. Encouragement, high five, special time earned with somebody special that she likes, earning a privilege to be a special helper, using your token reward, stickers, collectibles, some kind of a reward system. These are all usually very motivating and teaching or teachable instruments for when you're working with a student with Prader-Willi syndrome. Do participate in activities alongside the individual, not just telling her to go off and do something, but do it alongside her so that she's motivated to watch you. If this student is very slow to follow and is not following, is having sit-down strikes, well, then let us know and we'll teach you about the lead like a mama duck intervention. Again, never use food as a motivator, incentive, reward, or punishment. It will backfire on you every single time. Do bear in mind that executive functioning deficits are common in Prader-Willi syndrome. So this individual is going to need support probably throughout her lifetime with planning, prioritizing, organizing, problem solving, self-monitoring, self-regulating, paying attention, beginning tasks, multitasking, meeting deadlines, time management, and short-term memory. These are all inherently executive function deficits. Remember that common sense and judgment are impaired across the board. And then you're going to want to guide her to conclusions rather than problem solving for her. Beef up whatever problem solving skills she has a natural aptitude for. Help her figure those out, not just tell her what she could do instead. Work with her to teach her how to think about those. And then do remain vigilant against this thing called delusional grandiosity, which is very common in people with Prader-Willi syndrome, where if you, for instance, if you have a swimming pool on campus, I don't imagine that you do in the kindergarten level or elementary school, but if you do, you might ask this student, do you know how to swim? And she might say, oh, yes, I took swimming lessons and I'm a really good swimmer. So you might, okay, go to the pool and go swim your laps. And if you don't have eyeballs on, this student could be at great risk for drowning because she may not know how to swim at all. Okay, so monitor for safety. Our final intervention is using transition prompts to increase this student's flexibility. People with Prader-Willi syndrome have attention deficits almost always. At the same time, they often exhibit hyper-focus on what they're doing in the moment, which makes it extremely difficult to move on to the next activity, even if the next activity is a preferred one. So moving from class to class or stopping one assignment to move to another assignment. This can be very challenging for a lot of students. So use those limited preferred choices. Do you want to stop in 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Using transition prompts to prepare her brain for the transition. Okay, you chose 5 minutes. So we're going to be moving to our next activity in 5 minutes. So start finishing up what you're working on. Okay, 3 minutes. We need to start putting away your erasers or blah, blah, blah. You guys know how to do these, no doubt. Always provide lots of empathy. I know it's really hard to stop, isn't it? And you don't want to stop. I get it. You chose 5 minutes, so it is time to stop. Again, this in the beginning especially is where an aid designated support may be helpful because this student needs to learn boundaries if she doesn't have them, but she doesn't have them in a school setting, right? So you may have the rest of the classes finished and moving on to the next activity while this student can't stop what she's doing and needs that aid support to stay with her till her brain can stop and she can transition to the next activity. Excessive talking or repeated questions are very common. So first we wanted, in order to figure out what intervention we were going to use, we need to determine what's the function of repeated questions, right? And if she's asked you, are we going to the library today? Yes, we are. Are we going to the library today? Yes, we are. We're going at 12 o'clock. Are we going to the library today? Yes, we are. If she's asking you 4 times, right? Then on the 4th time, you're going to say, you know what? I've answered that question 3 times. You tell me, are we going to the library today? If she says, yes, we're going today at 12, now you've ruled out a short-term memory deficit. Now you're going to assess for anxiety. Is she nervous about going to the library for whatever reason? And then try and figure that out with her as best you can. And then from that information, you're going to work to reduce that stressor. It may be that her repeated questions or her continuous talking with you about, whatever, doesn't even matter, just constant talking with you, is to keep you engaged in conversation with her. If that's the case, you want to steer her from a monologue or just the same repeated question to a dialogue, expanded conversation, or to another topic. And you always do want to try to help this student engage with her peers rather than staying engaged with adults. A lot of students with Prader-Willi syndrome will say, how old is another student, right? And instead of saying, well, she's 5 years old, just like you want to help this student say, why don't you ask Sally yourself? Ask her and model it. How old are you, Sally? And then you want to help that student engage directly with other students. Excessive talking out loud could be a reflection of a nonverbal learning disability, which is, I believe, more common and not commonly diagnosed or not diagnosed enough in students with Prader-Willi syndrome or individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome. So the nonverbal learning disability in this context means that this student thinks outside of her head. She thinks through things and works things through by talking about them out loud. This can be very disruptive in a classroom setting. So you may want to assess for that a little bit later in age. Again, don't use consequences and punish negative consequences. Even natural consequences may not work with somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome. For instance, if you say to the student, it's raining outside, or it looks cold. Let's do it this way. It looks cold outside. Everybody grab your jackets, right? Before you go outside. But this student doesn't want to put on her jacket. And you think, okay, well, we'll use a natural consequence. Everybody's going to go outside with their jacket. She's refusing to. She's going to feel cold out there. So next time I say, bring your jacket, then she'll bring her jacket because she'll remember she was cold, right? That may not work at all. First of all, why? Because physiology says she may not feel cold like the other students because of that irregular temperature regulation dysfunction, yes? Or that higher pain threshold. She may not feel cold, but she may be more prone to catching a cold. I mean, I know that's not quite accurate, but she may be more prone to catching a cold. So now she comes in, she's sick, and at the very least, she hasn't learned next time to get her jacket. So, and certainly punishment is going to induce more behavior problems than it is going to be to teaching her the behavior that you want. Again, never use food to punish or incentivize. So our final thoughts. Remember, you as the school professional are absolutely critical to the health, safety, and overall quality of the life of the student with Prader-Willi syndrome who's in your care. Bear in mind that everybody has a bad day now and again, including people with Prader-Willi syndrome, so that even the most brilliantly managed intervention won't be successful all of the time. That's just Prader-Willi syndrome. And actually, that's just life, right? But when you incorporate the strategies you've learned here today, you will create an environment that inspires greater overall cooperation and increased fun and a better learning environment for not only your student with Prader-Willi syndrome, but for everybody in your classroom. So on behalf of the student and her family, we thank you for your time, attention, expertise. I'm going to give you my contact information. You can contact me at any time if you have questions, if you want to go over anything, if there are any scenarios that you want to brainstorm, we can certainly do that as well. So now I'm going to stop the share and open it up to questions for whatever remaining time you want to take. It's a lot of information, right? I often get this, oh my gosh, that is so much information.
Lisa, I have a question. So if we're out at lunch and we notice that she's like tending towards another student's lunch or a food item that they see, and I heard you say like no is not a response that you want to give this child, how do you respond in that sort of situation?
Yeah, so I would, so your physical body, right? So you're going to be on the move. If you see her reaching over, if you see her walking over, that's why you're going to have somebody nearby, right? You're going to have a designated person nearby. So that person is the one who will call out her name maybe, right? Hey, Adina, will you do me a favor, honey? Distraction. Or you can use things like, uh-oh, everybody has to have their own food. Uh-oh, everybody keeps their hands at their own on their own food. You know, so you can do things along that line.
Okay, and if she grabs it, we're not taking it away from her. Like if she
Nope.
grabs,
Nope, that's right. Then you're going to want to let her know, oh dear, I see you took that French fry, not accusatory, okay? And then you're going to make arrangements. So now you know maybe this student can't sit so close to people. So you have, now we don't want to isolate this student, right? So we'll brainstorm. We don't need to do that now. And but you would brainstorm, how do we manage this behavior? Because sitting this close is too much, right? Too much anxiety. She's going to take it. Or there are some students who they go to buddy club at lunch because they can't tolerate eating with all the students in the lunchroom, not only because of hyperphagia, but because it's too stimulating, right? They do. So they go to buddy club, and there's a couple of other students in there where they're playing a game, and it's more of a contained room, but they're not isolated from other students, right? There's lots of different ways that schools have brainstormed very successful strategies. So if it's an issue, then absolutely we'll address it.
And here, Adina's mom, just so I guess Lisa could answer the overall, the expert over here, and then I can answer specifically to Adina. And if any, I mean, I don't know how long are we staying. If anybody has questions, I'm here dedicated for however long anybody has any questions, email me, text me, or I could answer over here, especially for the people who's going to be with her very close, and we're crunching time because she'll start tomorrow. And then I see a lot of amazing questions that I would love to get into. To answer your question about food, the most important thing, obviously, I have been doing for the past 6 years exactly what Lisa has said, and she is thriving, progressing to the point that I've talked to Ms. Wan yesterday, that if you guys, anyone, I don't know who saw Adina when I brought her in a couple of days ago, you guys see her, all of you guys will not even recognize her, will not even think this is a child, that all the stuff that we went through right now. She is as ordinary as, because I have gotten by line with her with everything that Lisa just said, everything, as much as I could, obviously, possibly I could. So
let me interject.
Yeah.
Let me interject. That's important information, because a lot of students nowadays who have Prader-Willi syndrome will look like all the rest of your students. So we often forget that they have some very serious different ways of thinking about things. And we kind of forget that.
Yes. Okay? And then Adina, and she is one of those, like Lisa said, you would be like, she's not going to eat anything. She is so strong. She's as ordinary as possible. She has control. Like I took her to the doctor for a lot of behavior issues, and she did a whole bunch of rack, and then the doctor came in, accidentally kicked it on purpose to see her behavior, and she just sat down, smiled. Whoops, that was an accident. And the doctor asked me, what would she have done if that was at home with her sister? I was like, she would probably chop her head off. Just chop her head off. It would have been end of World War III. But over there, she had a smile and told the doctor, whoops, it's just an accident, with the biggest smile. So she is very in control, very, very smart. And to answer that question, the most important thing that worked with me for the past 6 years is being firm and making those rules in the beginning. And she was at LPP, which is a co-op school 3 days a week, and parents were not there because of the COVID. And I was asking every single day, how did she do? And she was sitting right next to other students, very close, and she never touched anybody's food. On purpose, the director would leave all the food and get her to lead and sit down and see if she will touch it. But it was the rule in the beginning. We don't touch anyone's food. It worked for there. I don't know how it's gonna change, obviously, but
Right. I wouldn't bank on it.
Exactly.
I wouldn't bank on it. This is a
Exactly.
brand new environment and we
Uh-huh.
have more hyperphagia. Thanks.
Exactly.
Jose. All right, let's ask Kimberly. Thanks. Kimberly, you have your hand raised.
She's
You want to
muted.
take yourself off mute?
That was a while ago. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Anything
You
you want to
answered it.
ask?
No, you answered it.
Okay. Angelica, your hand is up. Is that an old hand raise or no?
It might have been, but I'm just thinking ahead when we have tasting in the garden. One of the things we like to do, we just like to focus on one food at a time. We do offer a lot of safety nets for the kids. For example, we encourage them to smell the food at first, taste it with their tongue, and then eventually like to chew the food. And then if they don't like it, they're not supposed to spit out the food on the ground. They have to go spit it out at the hot compost bin because it helps the hot compost bin. So we have like a system to keep the kids safe, like for them to encourage them to eat like bok choy or any vegetables that they're not like familiar with. And so I'm just trying to think ahead, like how could I better support or accommodate our student when we have like tasting days where we do offer like vinaigrettes, seasoning, like little types of oils for them to dip their, whatever bok choy or kale they have going on. So what kind of accommodations can we do for our kiddo on that day?
I think I would say if she's able to do what the other students are doing and you're not seeing any issues, then just keep at it. If you see issues or problems, then you have to make a plan.
Like what?
But
Sorry, I don't
Mom-
want to keep on, but like for example, everybody has to share the dips, right? So would she require her own dip, like her own cup, her own, like that way we can
If she
monitor how
can't
much?
share, if she can't just dip and share, then you may have to make a different plan. But I wouldn't, I would not single her out. I would single her out to the least possible degree that you can until you learn, well, we've got to think of a different plan because that isn't working. Does that make sense? So yes,
Thank you. And
you want to.
I lowered my hand already.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It was
Can I
on.
just, sorry, this is Ingrid Beatty, the elementary principal, but can I just reiterate, because we did have a conversation yesterday and the questions popped up in the chat, but Mom, can you just verify that she will be going by Amy as of tomorrow? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
so this
everyone knows.
has nothing to do with the food, and maybe Lisa, you can even help me right now. And I think me and Lisa discussed this a few weeks ago. So she is into pretend play very, very heavily, and that's the reason I took her in for evaluation, because I was like, is this part of this whole thing or what's going on? At the moment, we're watching a show. Well, Mom is watching the show, and Heartland, I don't know if anybody knows about it or not, but the main character is a horse whisperer, horse rehabilitator and stuff. And she rides horses for therapy and all that stuff for her physical therapy and speech at Shea Center. She loves horses. She's with horses night and day. So she's Amy. And just like everything that Lisa went through, if you tell her no, and then it's going to be really ugly. So as her starting tomorrow, I'm not sure how Lisa feels about that. If I walk her in and the teacher says, well, hello, Adina, how are you? it will be an ugly face. It will be tantrum. She's not going to go in. It will be really, really bad. But if Miss Riley just comes in and says, oh my God, look who's here. It's Amy. It will be the most fantastic day. And from there on, as long as we keep her name, she knows her name, because at one point about last year, it was really bad. It was a different character, YouTuber, blah, blah, blah. But now she's old enough. She knows her name is Adina. When she's with new people, new grown adults, like at the hospital, whatever, she'll say Adina, last name, everything. But when she's comfortable with her teachers and friends, she'll say, my name is Amy and I'm 34 years old. So I don't know if that's what you are asking, but yes, so she wants to go at this moment, she wants to go by Amy. She will say Adina, my name is, but if she's comfortable with the teacher, then she would want to be preferred called Amy, because it's the character that we're watching. Then I don't know how Lisa feels about that.
Well,
And just to throw in there for you, when we were doing the early intervention, at that time, she was 3 years old. It was a YouTuber. Well, at that time was Claire. And this was really bad because she did not want to be called Adina. It was really, really bad.
yeah.
And at that time, the teacher was struggling with her and they were fighting, and it was pandemic, and we were doing Zoom stuff. And then she's very smart. She was keep changing her name, Amy. And then the teacher was change it back to Adina. She would change, like they would go back and forth the whole class.
Yeah, you're in a power struggle at that
Yeah.
point. So,
Yes.
so I have different, this would
So-
probably be an offline, but for school starting, my thinking would be is you go with her, I'm so-and-so and I'm 34 years old. And then when she's first coming into class, we want to make this a very safe start of the year for her. So we want to well, welcome to the class then, right? And then call her by her made up name. And then I would want to work with some kind of a compromise after the first week or so. You know what, honey, you can call yourself, I know that your name is, or I've heard that you want your name, you see your name as whatever. Can you do me a favor? Can you write that name up on the top of your paper? And then can you put in parentheses underneath what and that other name that we know you as, right? So what we want to do is interject some compromise to this. We want to interject respecting her, of wanting to control herself, but we don't want to. We want to differentiate whether this is delusional behavior that really needs a bunch of intervention, or if this is just kindergartner thinking that, but that she gets so upset when you, now I've known other students who don't have Prader-Willi syndrome who went through all of school wanting to be called Bob. And her name was a beautiful, her name was, Angelica, I don't know. But she wanted to be called Bob for whatever reason. And they just called her Bob, but she knew she wasn't 34 years old. So we want to keep an eye on this, but you may want to start out acknowledging that she wants to be called whatever it is she wants to be called. I wouldn't set up an adversarial relationship in the beginning, go with it. And then over time, we can figure out how we reach a compromise.
At the same time, I want to remember when to me, I feel like we're contradicting ourselves, because we're saying, okay, in the beginning, I want a firm. And as hard as it is, I want these teachers, aides, whoever's in her team to be very firm, empathetic, compassionate, and know what it's hell to be. Just imagine being starved the way you are 24/7. Having that in mind, and then at the same time being very firm with her. So going along with her play game, or we messing around with this whole thing that we're saying be firm, but hey, we're gonna play with your game. Hi, Amy, because once she gets that feeling with you, then you're screwed.
I'm not understanding. So do we, or are you telling us not to engage in the game of Amy?
I don't know. I'm asking Lisa, what would, I mean,
I have a lot of questions about Amy as well. Like in kindergarten, we're learning everybody's name. We're learning how to be friends. We're putting our name on pencil boxes. I mean,
and
what are we doing there?
Great question. And that's exactly what as of now, everywhere that she writes a card for a friend, a birthday, if we're going places, she is writing Amy. Like most of her therapists that she's releasing now because she's going in the afternoon because they were in the morning. We have to switch therapists. She's writing little notes. She's making postcards. She's writing Amy.
Do you think if I welcomed her as Adina, could I kind of fill out the situation? Or
Absolutely.
okay.
And I think I don't see Miss Riley here, but I do see that she's in here. I don't know if she remembers us.
That
because
is Miss Riley. Yeah,
Right
the
here.
one
That
we
was Miss
asked.
Riley who just asked that, yeah.
Oh, see, this is how much I know. Your hair was down, wasn't it? Because I don't know if you remember her or not. She did have a tag. She wasn't very happy about it. I had to put it on. She was fighting it. She got a pen to write it. I was like, nope, we're not going to do that. And then right when the ice cream thing was, when you guys were doing the ice cream, you open, you say, hello, Adina. And then she turns around towards me like, oh, she's calling me Adina. And I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And I was trying to hold myself. And then I was like, let's just go. It's okay. It's okay. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to answer you. Right now at her therapy, Shea Center, everybody is going along with Amy. Her doctors, the whole Kaiser team.
So if you're welcoming her into the classroom and she hasn't told you yet she goes by Amy, then you may want to welcome her as Adina, and it is what it is. If when you're saying, would you like to, all of you guys introduce yourselves to the class, if she introduces herself to the class as Amy, then everybody go with Amy, right? That's fine. I'm more concerned about the long, and then just go with Amy. It doesn't really
Again,
matter.
What
right?
about the pencils and like, so again,
Amy,
kindergarten kids walk
doesn't
into a
matter.
classroom, things are already set up for them. They've like, I'm sure Miss Riley's working on name tags for just about everything. So just so that we're clear, we're going to just presume Amy, and we're going to put the stickers on right now as Amy.
I have everything as
No,
Adina.
no, let's just do Adina. As a parent, as a mom, I want everything to be Adina. And I want her to know that this Amy thing is just a play. She doesn't want to hear it. And if she hears that I say pretend, like Lisa said, she's very smart, very in tune. She's like, I'm not pretending, mommy. I'm not Adina. So the only thing that gives me hope, because she will tell you, Miss Riley, I know they're saying I'm Adina, but I'm not Adina. I'm Amy. You know who Amy is? And she'll tell you the whole story. She'll tell you it's a movie. I'm doing this. I'm doing. So she's not completely in like nope. And then, like I said, I've seen her in settings that I'm not there. She's new, and they ask her, "What's your name?" Adina. How old are you? 6. But then she gets comfortable. They're like, "What's your name?" Oh, actually, my name is Amy, and I'm 34. So it depends on the environment. So whatever you've been doing, I prefer to let's stick to that. She understands, she spells, she writes, she reads. She's very smart. She will know where to go. And then if I am thinking she will change it herself. And then that is you guys' thing, how you guys going to go along with that. Maybe with the students, you could say like, this is Adina. And then once she starts, if she doesn't do anything, let's just go along with it. But if she gives you a hard time, then you could say, well, students, she is Adina, but she prefers to be called Amy for right now. And I'm pretty much sure within the next few months, it will change to someone else.
Okay.
I have a feeling.
Okay, are we all good with that plan?
I have something to contribute. Hi, Mom. I'm Emelina. I'm the speech language pathologist.
Okay.
And I love the idea that we're just going to start with Adina because that's who she is. And I think the whole idea of pretend play is very abstract, right? And excuse me, she probably doesn't have the language to separate it from what's abstract and what's pretend and what's concrete for her. And I think we can, as therapists, we can help utilize some of the strategies that we know and give her the language to really structure what she's seeing. So Amy can be a person that she can be at home versus Adina is someone she can be at school. And here at school, I am the speech language pathologist, but at home, I'm a mother. We have different roles. So we can start showing and demonstrating that to her.
Perfect.
But it'll probably take time.
Of course.
But I love the idea that you're saying, let's start with Adina and reinforce that at school and let's see how that goes. So
absolutely.
Sure, there'll be some resistance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like the moment she gets comfortable is when the behavior stuff gets in. That's why I say everybody be empathetic, but firm.
Yeah.
Because once she finds that way that you're like, easy on her, then that's when the behavior starts.
Okay, I'm looking at the chat real quick here. History of febrile seizures, is that resolved?
Yes, thankfully, as of now, it is resolved. However, Kaiser is very, very adamant because she's now not under my care 24/7. And we talked about it yesterday, that febrile seizure was due to heat regulation, because I wasn't aware that she had fever. And by the time I checked, I just didn't feel anything. And then by the time 911 took her to our emergency room, she had 104 fever and she was hot within seconds. And that's when she had seizure. So
Right.
the heat, especially nowadays being 90, 95, and I've regulated for the past, since I've learned it, it's been 3.5, 4 years that she hasn't had it, because she has been supervised 24/7.
Got it. Does she wear a cooling vest?
No, she's not.
Okay.
Because she's at AC, air conditioning, or if she's an outdoor, it will be no more than 80, around
Okay.
80s. If it's
So
80
if it's 80 degrees outside,
if it,
she's not able to be outside. Is that what you're saying?
I think her threshold at this moment, that her pediatrician says about 82 to 83, it will be as soon as it hits 85, she needs to be indoors somewhere cooling, and keep letting her know that she needs to drink water, because she will not drink. She has to be keep reminded that she needs to drink. So 85 would be, as soon as it hits 85, she needs to be indoors. She's not going to be able to handle it. Like I said, I told the story of this past weekend in Irvine, that it was about close to 87, 88, and I had to run to the car because she was getting lethargic. It was this close.
We clear on that? What our threshold is? Question was, are books that have pictures of food or are about types of food an issue? Let's go with no.
Yeah, not at the moment. Now, and then like I said, so everything I'm answering is right this second. We don't know how it's going to be progressing. She's growing fast. She's progressing fast. So I'm answering right now. No, not at all.
Unless we see it's a problem, we won't
Exactly.
necessarily.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions, you guys? Yeah, Alex.
I'm just wondering, I mean, you are her first and best teacher, but what are some like situations where you can almost always expect to see some sort of behavior? And then how do you handle it? Like, I just need all the advice.
Oh, absolutely. And I know there are a lot of people here, and I know I'm sure everybody has overwhelmed with tomorrow's school starting. And Ms. Riley, you could give me a call, or we could Zoom alone at any time whatsoever, and I'm not kidding, no exaggeration, 24/7. Her pediatrician has called me Sunday night at 11 o'clock for one thing or another. I'm available 24/7 for absolutely anything. My strategy with her been, I don't even know when I'm answering you some of these, Lisa would agree or not, but for me, distraction has been my miracle. Distraction has been and empathy, understanding what she's going through, and distraction. I want food. Oh, no problem. But guess what? You haven't even finished your puzzle. Nope, I don't want to do it. I thought you wanted me to do your puzzle with you. This is the time I have time with you. Okay, mommy, let's do it. And then hours and hours passes and we're forgetting about it. Mommy, I want to go to Disneyland. Well, sweetheart, they're closed. It's not available right now. But no, I want to do it. Guess what? You promised me you're going to go with me to the park, and I will go, and you're going to chase me. Remember, we're going to do lava, whatever. Okay. And then, so distraction has been my miracle with absolutely little things to big expectations.
Thank you.
Of course. Now, one more thing, Lisa, that respiratory issue in the first slide, I know that you were pinpointing a lot of stuff, but then there's a couple of things that you weren't highlight. I don't know if you were highlighting it or that's how it was, or which one were very, very important, because I know.
What about respiratory?
The respiratory issue, because I didn't see you talking about it, and I know what, with her condition, they're from mild to severe, and some of them has certain things more severe. Adina does have respiratory issues. She is diagnosed with asthma, mild, but she does have it. And the plan is, like I said, if you see her, you wouldn't think anything of it. And you would want her to go with the kids and run, and she would run, especially that she's very, very competitive, and she will go climb the highest mountain without knowing that she can't do it. So she cannot be overstimulated. She would try to outrun. Like Lisa said, it's all about her. She always wants to be number one. And so respiratory is issue. It will come up when she's overstimulated.
Does she have a,
My name is Maddie Mackesy, and I am an instructor at the school. Does she have an inhaler in the
No.
office?
We're not in that. She's never needed it. The only time we intervene with it, when she has even a minor cold, it becomes to the point that she has to end up in ER. But we, as a regularly, every few weeks, when for some reason I get distracted or whatever, that she's running with her sister or with her friends and stuff. And then I see that when she's talking, she's like, oh, yeah, mommy, yeah. And then after a few seconds of sitting her down, calming her down, it goes away. So her pulmonologist specialist does not give her an inhaler. He said it's very minor as long as we can control it. So she's perfectly fine with normal activities unless she is overstimulated and someone is not closely watching it.
okay. Nicholas, your hand is up.
Yes. Hi. I'm Edina's dad.
Hi.
Thank you so much for this beautiful presentation. I loved it. Thank you. Thanks to each one of you who is on this call. This means so much to Edina and all of us. Just wanted to dearly thank you guys. I have a request. I love your presentation. Is there any way that you could share the file so we could have it either as a PDF or a PowerPoint or something?
You have the PowerPoint handout. I don't share the PowerPoint itself. And you will have a recording of it.
Okay, that's wonderful. One note I was gonna talk about when Edina gets into anything that's competitive, like winning something, or if let's see who finishes something first. When she really gets into that, she really has to win. So if she doesn't win, she might throw a tantrum. So
And that's where we'll come in.
yeah.
How disappointing. How disappointing. You wanted to win. So we're not going to have everybody else lose. You can do that at home, right? But we want to teach how disappointing. So we're trying to have her to monitor, or not monitor, to regulate, to notice that she's disappointed. But that may be a behavior, is what you're saying, that comes up.
Yes.
And so in response to that, I want. You wanted to win. You like winning. That's where we're going to want to use that empathy.
Yep. Yeah, just heads up on that one.
Good.
Well,
Good.
thank
That's a
you
good
again.
point.
Yeah, and that goes back to the same thing being firm, because we have a lot of these behavior issues at home, and it is because she's comfortable with her sister. And it's not just something getting into, it's almost everything. Like, we're going outside. I want to be first out of the door. I want to be first sitting in the car. I want to be first coming out of the car. I want to be first to turn on the TV. I want to be first to go to bed. I want to be first to go to the restroom. So everything, I want to be first. But then I ask the teachers, and they're like, nope, she's not doing it this at school, because it was firm. This is the rule. We all going to be leader one day. They were all, just like you were explaining, like, you're going to be the leader today. And then she was so excited every few weeks. Mommy, I was the leader. I had to choose whatever they had to do and stuff. So that was a great point that her dad brought up. That is one of the things that we are struggling right now a lot, that everything is about her. And I want to be number one. I want to be number one.
You can use that to your advantage at school to help get us there. Good. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, thank you. We'll officially stop this training.
Okay, I'm
and-
so sorry. I know you stopped, but there's some other things that, is it something I should talk with the teachers or with the aides or what? Like she does have scoliosis. She's on the watch on a scoliosis. So for her to set up, so I don't know, I apologize. Oh, you're back recording. Okay. So she, like the scoliosis part, that these are the little things that you want. She is on the watch for scoliosis. And so we're just on the watch. Every 6 months she goes. So we've noticed that if you see her sitting and like all of a sudden she's slouching, we do have to remind her to sit up. But that, I don't know, how does that gonna work at school, or what, how closely someone is gonna be watching her, because there are gonna be times when she's sitting for a long time. Skin picking, she has a lot of, she doesn't have a lot of things, but these are the things she does have, especially that right now when there's a lot of bites on her, the mosquito bites and stuff, like a little tiny bites now is like this big on her hand right now, because she's keep picking on it. So I put a Band-Aid on it. So if anybody at school sees anything, a bug bite or something that she's picking on, just put a Band-Aid, and then she's over it. So she's not, somebody asked for how is she from one activity to another. This LPP or her preschool said they weren't having that much issues, because they left her to do whatever she wanted to do, because they weren't like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do it. But the year before that she was at the early intervention, they were having problems with her. And the teacher even contacted me, just to let you know, when she's into drawing and I try to tell her, okay, now it's time to go do something else. She was having a hard time going from one activity to another. At home, I don't have any of that kind of thing, as long as I make it more exciting. Like she loves, her number one strength, just for everybody to know, she absolutely loves and lives and breathes puzzles and bugs, collecting bugs all day, every day. You guys are gonna go gardening, she's gonna find a little place to go collect roly-polies, like 20, 30 of them in her hands, very gentle, very compassionate, so not gonna hurt them. She literally goes, picks them and releases them in the bushes, because so nobody, steps on them. But if it's like she's doing a puzzle at school and you guys wanna go outside, it will be hard unless you say, guess what? We're going to go outside and see if we can find roly-poly. And then she will just start, no problem. But if it's something like, now we're going to go eat broccoli. Oh, heck no, I'm not going there. I want to stay here. So it's just to find out so answered whoever says about going from one activity to another. And another thing is about, I'm concerned about her movement. When all the students are like, okay, pack up now, let's go. The more, because I do that all the time, all day. We're always in a rush, always are, let's go, hurry. And she's trying to put her shoes on, and she's very, very, self-sufficient is the word I'm looking for. She does not want help from anyone. She wants to do all her things herself. Even if it takes her an hour to put on that jacket, she's not going to let you help her. Unless you find a way to, I don't want to say bribe her, but make it fun. She will literally make you stand there in the student, and she does not care if the school is out and it's dark. She will put that jacket on herself. So these are the things. She is a little bit slower. So I don't know if we're going to plan on, like, if it's lunchtime and you guys only have 2 minutes to put everything away and go, if we're going to start with her maybe 5 minutes earlier to, I don't know, like put on your shoes or put your stuff away. And then now let's go, because she is low tone. She's not going to be running. And the most important for her safety, if everyone is going all together, she doesn't have the strength when two students are bumping into her, because as soon as you bump into her, she will fall. She doesn't have that flexibility to hold herself. So she cannot be against any student that they're rushing and trying to come out of the door. She will fall, especially on concrete, which is the most dangerous part.
Thank you so much for that. All right, y'all, we're at time, so you are free to go. If you do have any last minute questions, feel free to stay on, but you are good to log off now. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
So my question from, I guess, I don't know if Lisa could be able to help me, from the school as a parent, what are you guys going to do to protect Adina I know they're very, very young, but even right now, I hear the bullying and the friends making fun and stuff. Even right now at the park, like I have friends that we went to birthday party, and this one little student says, "Well, you cannot have cake because you're sick." I have no idea where she heard, because Miss Han knows how private I am with this, but somehow, somewhere, that little kid found out, and I heard it. So with us being on Adina so closely, and these students as they're growing up, how are we protecting her that she's not going to become that bully's pick point? Maybe not this year, the following, and I know we're going to take one day at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time, that at this age, not intentionally, not maliciously, but there will be little kids that they're going to tell her like, hey, you cannot go to the garden because you are sick. You cannot have this because you cannot handle it. Things like that. Are we going to make it parade? I'm not saying purposely parade around that, you know, that, because I know I've been, when I used to be in high school, there were students with a lot of, you know, issues and stuff. And then there would be somebody sitting right next to them doing everything, but no student would know about it. That no student would know about it, that this teacher extra aid was for the student, because they were always try to be invisible while watching the student. How are we doing that?
Anybody want to take that? Beyond.
So, although
response.
there's no way for us to control other children's behavior,
Absolutely.
foster a really compassionate and caring community of students. So, we do have lots of students with different abilities at our school, and I really can't think of a single time in which a student was singled out by another student. So I think that problem can feel really big in our head. But the reality of our school is that the students are kind to each other. They stick up for one another. And the teachers will keep an eye out. Our students are usually pretty vigilant about being kind and caring towards one another. So I think that the teachers, we will, of course, definitely keep an eye out for that. But at the same time, it's not something that I've really experienced at this school.
Okay. And obviously her safety is number one. I wouldn't care about that as long as she's safe with the adults. So it's not like because of this issue, I want the aide or the teacher to back off because, oh, I don't want her to be bullied. So of course her safety, her health comes above and beyond. But at the same time, I don't want, because this 6 years, it's been tough, but I have never singled her out. And I don't even know if Elisa agrees with this, but I've never treated her as anything but any ordinary child that I have, just a second child that's just having a little bit extra stuff that I have to do. And I know there's some that they're treating them very special, or this is disabled, I have to treat her different. I never did. And I would like to make sure that she's not singled out by anybody.
I think that's the point, is when we're interacting or when we're providing shadow supports, that we're doing it from a great distance.
Thank you.
So that we're not identifying the student as having
Thank
special
you.
needs.
Perfect. I guess that's the perfect wording.
Okay.
That's it. I don't think, and Ms. Riley or anyone else, like I said, 24/7, call me, text me, email me. I am available. I will share with you anything that I have done. You know, obviously the first person with her night and day, 24/7, her caregiver. Obviously not the professionally, you have to ask Lisa, because Lisa's my get to go. I've texted her middle of the night, 2 in the morning. I've called her sobbing. We've been through a lot. So she's more the professional with a lot of 20+ years experience guiding me. But if you have any questions directly with what's going on with, you know, I'm available as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Nicholas and Hosai.
You're welcome. One more thing, Lisa, that the school requested something in case of emergency, if they have to call 911 for whatever reason, you know, just to be safe. We're not expecting it, but you never know. And I had that issue too the first couple of times for the seizure when I had problem.
Yeah.
Trying to explain to the paramedics, she has PWS. They're like, what is that? We have no idea. We're going to treat. I
Oh,
called Kaiser. They said all they could tell is like, these are the things.
no. There's a medical alert booklet that I will email the PDF to
Okay.
Joe too, and he can
Perfect.
distribute it,
Okay.
make sure it's in her file.
Yeah.
It's a
So
medical
that,
alert.
okay.
Medical
Perfect. So-
alert, because
Yeah.
when you go to anywhere, nobody believes that this is a student who doesn't have internal regulated temperature, right? She could be seriously ill and not register a fever. Nobody believes either that she could have broken her arm and not be expressing a significant amount of pain. ER docs don't know about Prader-Willi syndrome, so we'll get that
Okay,
medical
perfect.
alert booklet that confirms that.
Okay, it's so just I just want to ask, because this was a big topic yesterday meeting, and I did call Kaiser, and they said all her doctors, like, they could call me, email me, and I could tell her all the stuff we've been through with her, but I don't know how to treat her to a paramedic without knowing what is the cause. That's all we know. That is going to be something that association could go ahead and help them with.
Sorry, Dad. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Woo! Sorry.
Oh, she
Okay.
is too, by the way. Oh my God. Oh, then you guys gonna be
Yes.
best friends.
We'll be
Oh
fine.
my God.
Yes, she's completely on the dark side though.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Kylo Ren and Darth
You know,
Vader are my favorite.
That's an
Yes.
interesting observation.
Oh.
Almost every person I've met in over 2 decades worth of doing this work, every person with Prader-Willi syndrome gravitates to the dark side, gravitates
my-
to the villain, gravitates to, and I think one of the reasons they do it is because that often has the more power,
Exactly.
more
Yep.
power to it.
So Miss Riley, good job. Miss Riley,
On
she, for the first time, 10 years, we have Disney Pass. For the first 8 years, all we did is the foo-foo things, never with my older one. It's been 2 years, it was COVID, it was closed. We just started going back this year. Guess what? For the first time, I've known places in Disneyland I never knew it existed. All she cares about is the villain of everything. She wants to be Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, the evil queen, the Kyle Loren, all of that. So yes, that is perfect. She does not want any foo-foo little things. I was getting concerned. Her dad was more than me. He's like, what is she going to be, an axe murderer or what? She loves Chucky. Like, the power. Oh my God. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's it. So that's all I have. And anything else that's very, very, oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. Very, very important. That thing that you said, that I don't know if this is lying or not, but me and her dad are dealing with it right now. Like, for example, she does something with her sister and I'm watching. They're just yelling, I don't want to play a game with you. And I'm like, what's going on? She hit me. Or like yesterday, she was with her dad. I was the Girl Scout with sister.
Shay, I'm going to stop you.
Uh-huh.
That would be a home thing, and we'll take that offline and talk about that.
Is that going to be happening at school? That's what
Very likely.
Is. Okay.
That's a kid thing too. Not just a Prader-Willi syndrome thing.
Oh, so it's not okay. So that's what I'm saying. Okay. That's what I was concerned about, because I wanted to make sure, like, she hit me and I'm like, she was in another room. Okay.
Yeah, I'll also communicate with you frequently. So if things do come up, I'll be like, this was the situation and this is how,
Please. Perfect.
That way you're not wondering, like, did she really get hurt or, I do have to go. I have another meeting.
Oh, that's fine. Go for it.
Okay, I was going to wait online for somebody, but I guess that person's gone. So we'll stop this. Okay, guys.
Well, thank you so very much, Lisa. I so appreciate you for all you do, for all you have done, for all the middle nights talking to me hours and hours. So I really appreciate you.
You got it.
So is this it? Are they